Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, coming off of that fast break here inside of the Heritage Hill Studios, Heritage Hill Brewhouse on 3149 Sweet Road in Pompey, New York, out in the rolling hills of upstate New York, as well as on 628 South Main Street in North Syracuse at Sweetheart Corners, their newest location, Heritage Hill North. I am picture in picture with Paul Marco, the Binghamton men's soccer head coach for the Bearcats heading into the 2024-25 season as we get excited for what's to come here in this upcoming campaign. It is more than 2 decades for Paul at Binghamton, and when we signed on to do this exclusive multimedia marketing partnership, Paul was one of the first faces I got to see and one of the first hands I got to shake. So it is truly an honor and a privilege to be here on Wake Up Call, picture in picture with the man who is worldly in the world of soccer, aka football, to the rest of the world. Paul, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Hopefully
Absolutely.
you're having a good day too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I were talking off the air, and I want to jump right into this because, Wake Up Call, as we were talking about a little bit off the air, we're a different type of show. And spreading positivity and telling stories in a unique way, being original and innovative is incredibly important to me. And meeting wonderful people like yourself, you and I were speaking on this, and I wanted to talk with you about the season. I wanted to talk with you because I love the sport of soccer as well. And off the air, you said something to me, and I thought, we have to start here because your passion about it was so easily seen on your face. You just went to Kenya. You went over to Africa, went to Kenya, and you got to be there for almost 2 weeks. And I'd love for you to share why you went over there and what you did while you were there.
So besides my work at Binghamton, which is my full-time job, I wear two other hats. I am a coach educator, so I'm a soccer coaching educator. I'm responsible for the Premier Diploma, which is one of the highest badges you can get in the States, with United Soccer Coaches. And that organization I've been a member of since I got into coaching in the early 90s. And it's been a wonderful educational experience for me. I've got to go to a couple World Cups. I went to the Brazil World Cup in 2014. I went to Germany and taught the first international badge that we had. And this opportunity this summer came up. It was very tight. I only returned on Saturday night. So I was a little nervous about being so close to preseason.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I have some wonderful assistants who can help prepare some stuff here while I was away. But what a tremendous experience in Kenya. So we were there to teach a national diploma. We had about 43 coaches on the course. My daughter actually got to go over and take the course as well.
That's awesome.
But it was great. And probably the biggest takeaways from it, first, the first time we had a lot of women on the course. We had 5 women on the course. They were all excellent. The level of play was excellent among the coaches. Their technical ability and how you do something with the ball was outstanding. But the biggest piece for me was the positivity of every coach. You know, in our sport, when players make mistakes, especially depending on if you're usually from a European nation, you know, England, Germany, you get on players. You're very critical of them. This was oozing positivity. I was thrilled to be part of it. It was a wonderful experience. I think I'm a better coach than I was a week ago. I might end up with a couple of players here at Binghamton from the trip. So,
That's awesome.
I'm always recruiting. Yeah, it was wonderful.
You say you're a better coach because of it. Why?
I think um, I think I'm a lot. I've always been very appreciative of the opportunities that I have. I believe it's a privilege here to work at Binghamton. I believe it's a privilege to coach in the college game.
Yeah.
And seeing how little the coaches there have. I mean, most of these coaches have one ball for their entire team at a training session. And we pumped up the balls this morning for our training session tomorrow, and we have 4 bags of 12 balls in each bag. So I think it gave me a little more appreciation for what we have.
Yeah.
I certainly am more, I mean, I've always been a pretty positive guy. I always think that, if you want more in your cup, half full, half empty, I just have the right amount in my cup. If I want more, I put more in it. And these coaches were very appreciative. extremely positive, loved the feedback that they were getting. They had a thirst for knowledge,
Yeah.
which is right up my alley. I mean, I'm still a student of the game. I love watching the game. I love watching it through a coach's lens. So yeah, I just feel energized. If it's possible to be more energized than I usually am, but yeah,
Yeah.
really ready for tomorrow.
And like you said, I mean this opportunity of going to Kenya and all the positivity and being around that positivity, like you said, sometimes there's a microscope on the game, and because we're watching this game of soccer that starts off 0-0, and we're in the 90th minute and it could still be 0-0. I mean, the one mistake, right? Sometimes
Right.
that own goal, that moment where something just ricochets a certain way, we know that just that one thing can cause such an issue. So knowing that the magnifying glass on the sport of soccer is so large and always focused on a mistake, to be in a situation in Kenya where you said it was all positivity, what did that do for you, and how did that give you more of an appreciation for the game, knowing that there wasn't a focus on mistakes, there was a focus on loving the game and a focus on building each other up and teaching each other and getting better?
For sure. I mean, the focus was on having a better grasp of their craft as a coach,
Yeah.
as well as their depth of knowledge in the game. To give you an example, so every morning we would get up early. Breakfast was between 6:30 and 7. Between 7 and 7:30, we really kind of hung out at breakfast, but the food was gone.
Yeah.
And then at 7:30, most mornings they had probably about a 30-minute time where they had self-reflection. It was a very religious group that we were with. They each got up and spoke about what their religion meant to them. We had different religions. Most were Christian, but we did have a few Muslims on the course. And then how we got to the field was really cool. So they would play music and they would dance and we weren't that far. I mean, we were 100 yards max to the field, but they would dance that 100 yards listening to music to get out to the field. So the positivity and the happiness
Yeah.
started right from breakfast. It was kind of neat. I mean, you don't see those things in the States. They don't dance out to the fields.
No, I mean it almost sounds like. And what were the ages of the people out there?
Most of the coaches were in their 30s. We had a couple in their 20s, maybe 5 or 6 in their 20s, and then we had a few that were in their 40s. But most of the coaches were in their 30s.
So, and I ask that because to see children play and have fun is beautiful. To have grown men out there celebrating and appreciating the game, having been around it for however many years. I know that you love this game. I know it means a lot to you, but did seeing people in their, like their 20s, a lot in their 30s and some in their 40s, did seeing that like big kid that like, I'm 35 years old and I love this and it means the world to me and I'm still got big eyes when I come out onto the field. Did that take all that you have for the game and somehow put a little bit, like you said, there's enough in your cup, but did these guys put a little bit more in your cup?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when we're going around the room introducing yourselves and where you're from, we had two coaches that they took a bus to get there,
Wow.
and it took 2 days. 2 days of transportation by bus to get to the course. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm just very thankful and appreciative for the moment I had with them, and I've still been in touch with them. I've been now, you know, a couple of them are trying to send us a player or two, which is wonderful for us. Um, but they were just so thirsty for not just the soccer knowledge. They were thirsty for how to interact with players, any insight we could share with them. Of course, they were wanting equipment and things like that. I feel for them. I mean, I want to start, figuring out how to raise awareness for some of our African countries who are less fortunate, to have one soccer ball for an entire, 20 to 22 players.
Yeah.
That's difficult. Yeah, that's difficult.
And you talk about that one soccer ball. You have something you brought home with you, didn't you?
I do. I do. Let me grab it.
Okay.
So this ball is one of the balls we kind of used on the course. There was a company that donated these balls to the course,
Yeah.
and all of the coaches, I don't know if you could see it, but all of the coaches had signed and wrote a little message on it. They drew some pictures on it. It's I mean, I broke down when they presented it to me. It was one of those touching moments, it was at the end of the week. We had just finished our testing. The group was really good. Everybody was nervous for their testing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this ball comes in, and they wanted to say thank you. It was wonderful.
And for you, like you said, you wear many hats, Paul. I mean, how did this come about that you're going around the world and, like you said, these courses and these teachings and whatnot? How did this happen that you have these opportunities to go and do these things? I mean, like, I wasn't there, and the way that you're describing it, I'm feeling that emotion. Like when you said I got worked up, I got choked up when they presented that ball. Picturing you going through this, right? And you don't know these people, and then after 10 days, here you are moved by everything they did, and then they hand you this, which to some people is a simple ball, but to you it's like it's a culmination and a remembrance of that moment. And as much as you're the teacher, they taught you something. So how did all of this happen that you got this opportunity to do these things? 'Cause I'm really, number one, I'm intrigued, and number two, Paul, I'm gonna really build our relationship up over the next year so that when you travel again, you'll put me in your suitcase. So
So I've been doing coaching education pretty much my entire career. So I started in '92 coaching in college at West Virginia, where I played.
yeah,
My head coach that I played for, I also worked for. So '92 to '95, I was his assistant. Well, in '94, he got me involved in this organization called the NSCAA, National Soccer Coaches of America.
yeah,
And the NSCAA has now become United Soccer Coaches. So when I was on this coaching course, the highest badge at the time, the Advanced National, I did well enough on that course that they invited me to join their staff. So I joined as, the young guy on staff, and kind of worked my way up. I became a senior national staff coach and been responsible now for the premier badge for probably, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 years. I've written a new course called Modern Trends that sits now above the premier. So you would have an A license or a premier badge to take that course. We'll launch that here soon. And I also work with our master coach diploma, which is like a mentorship, 9 to 12 month course that you would take, not really focused on the field, more about things off the field. And the director of coaching course is very similar to that too. So I do a lot of coaching ed. I love it. It has helped us bring a lot of players here to Binghamton. The more coaches I get to meet, the coaches are coaching players, and they change players. Players grow out of coaches, and by age. So each coach that I interact with, they may have over a course of 5 years, they may end up with 100 different players. So yeah, we've been very fortunate to pick up some of those players here at Binghamton.
here with Paul Marco, the Binghamton Bearcats men's soccer head coach, as we head into this 2024 season that is fast approaching in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University here on Wake Up Call inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Everything that you've been saying, Paul, is about something that I think is incredibly important in life. It is an art, and it'll never fail, which is building relationships. Who taught you growing up the value and the crucial reality that relationships are imperative to sustaining success and really enriching your life?
Well, obviously it starts at home, right? I mean, my mom was excellent at building relationships. She worked in a profession that needed to have good relationships. My grandfather owned a crane company. I thought I was going to be a crane owner when I was young. And the relationships that he had, and he was probably the most generous man I've ever met, especially with time. He had more patience than anyone. I think I get some of my patience from him. At least I would hope that I make him proud with that.
Yeah.
He also um, he was generous with not only his time but his labor, his work.
Yeah.
And I think that I have tried to mirror that. And then I've had some really good coaches. I had a coach um, who was probably the best player coach. And what I mean by that is all the players loved him. We would do anything for this coach. It was how he treated us. It was how he made you feel. He always made you feel like you could do it. And I feel like that's what I got reminded of this past week. You know, everybody felt like everybody could do whatever they were trying to do. And if you didn't get it on your first try, you were going to get it on your next try.
Yeah.
I conveyed that message to my college guys today. We talked a lot about positivity and the conversations you have. Be careful of the conversations you have outside this room. I gave an example, and I don't know how it worked out, but I gave an example this today about, the conversations you have with your parents. Your parents aren't here in Binghamton.
Yeah.
I mean, we have got new players from across the globe. We have some international players that have come to join us. We have our first Israeli player. We have our first Brazilian in a long time. So, I said to the guys, just next time you talk to your folks, tell them how hard it's raining in Binghamton and the weather's terrible. And it's beautiful skies when I'm giving this talk. And about 7 to 8 minutes later, all of a sudden we just got monsoon rains.
Yeah.
And the guys were kind of picking on me about that, about predicting the weather. But it is really truly about the conversations we have. And, we talked about happiness. And when we close out our courses, we talk about 3 Ps. One of my friends, Shellis, who I teach with, he talks about people, place, and purpose. And if you have all 3 Ps, you're probably a pretty happy person. The people that you're around, the place that you live, place that you work, and do you find purpose in life? I believe that I get an extra 2 Ps. I think I pursue my passion every day. I'm very passionate about the game. I'm very passionate about Binghamton. I really enjoy the people I work with here. We have wonderful administrators, great colleagues. The coaches are wonderful. And we have terrific student athletes.
And you talk about those student athletes and, looking at the roster, which I implore you all to do by going to bubearcats.com. This roster full of all over, like you said, Virginia, Germany, of course, Binghamton, New York, other parts of New York, Israel, Pennsylvania, Brazil, as well as, and I'm looking at, Smithtown, New York, Churchville, New York, and so on and so forth, England, Paris, France, and the state of Washington, as well as Georgia, Buffalo, Ithaca. I know Manassas, Virginia. I'm seeing that on here. I mean, this is such a melting pot, and isn't that what soccer is? I honestly feel like if you're a soccer coach and you're putting together a team in college, I almost don't know how you don't go all over the world to do it, because this game is such a worldly game. And I just feel like when you watch soccer and you see it professionally, and you just all these different languages of people, but they speak the same language with their feet. And I would love for you to get into your roster a little bit more as we look at Germany and England and New York and Virginia and Brazil and Israel and Pennsylvania and so on and so forth, and just what this specific 2024 roster means to you.
Well, before we jump into that, you just reminded me of a new, and not new, I probably, in all the years doing coaching ed, I probably have had 4 or 5 deaf coaches. So We had a deaf coach on the course in Kenya. And what was really neat is we had an interpreter. So they're doing their sign language.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of sign language. I was learning it with Kevin, our coach on the course. But he was trying to get us to do certain things, and he's signing to the interpreter. She now has to have signed back to them, and then she finally tells us what he wants us to do. And finally, I said, "Scrap it! Like, you don't need to tell us; just show us." And it goes back to showing us with his feet. And he basically said, "Do this," and then he just went out and did it.
Yeah.
By the end of the week, we didn't even really need the interpreter, and I still really didn't know what he was saying. I just knew what he was doing. So our roster, it's kind of unique. Like Binghamton attracts high level students.
Yeah.
The niche is, can we attract high level student athletes? And for that limits our pool a little bit, right? Like at West Virginia, I could probably take anybody. We had two players that were non-qualifiers. Here, we can't get a player that's a non-qualifier. So the academic makeup of the two universities are much different. So with a limited pool, we have to look over a lot of places. We always start in town. I always want to try to bring the best local players and keep them here at home. So usually, through the time that I've been here, we've been able to attract the better local players, and they've stayed here and played. And some have had wonderful successes, including MVPs in the league. And then the circle kind of just gets bigger. And then it stays in New York because we're a state school as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to compete in our conference with solely New York kids. Albany, look at their roster from last year. They had 22 international players and only 5 New York players. And that's a school in our capital. Our conference is excellent. It is the best sport in the America East. Men's soccer is the highest rated sport in the America East. This year, we probably will have 4 teams nationally ranked out of the 8. Last year, we had 3 make the NCAA tournament. If UMBC got to the final, I think they probably would have made it as well. So it's excellent. We've been in the top 3 to 4 conferences in the country. So it's a really good conference. So we've got to do our homework. We've got to go out and look for players from everywhere. And we have a lot of transfers. That's what's changed recently in Division I. There's many more transfers. The portal has changed kind of college with obviously the COVID year. That had changed too. Everybody getting an extra year of eligibility. And that changes now next year. We'll see a shift kind of back, hopefully.
Yeah, and you brought it up, the transfer portal, because Binghamton is, like you said, you're not getting fringe student athletes there because the education demand is so high. When you're going into the transfer portal, how are you attacking that as a coach? Like you said, the COVID extra year will drop off after next year, so hopefully there will be some return to high school kids that are kind of nervous about their recruitment and whatnot. But how do you attack the transfer portal? Are you every year kind of saying, hey, listen, we're going to get the best of the best from high school in the transfer portal? Do you lean on the transfer portal and say, hey, these guys have been playing collegiately as opposed to those that are coming over from high school? I mean, how do you try to marry the two together? Because different coaches have different philosophies.
So our conference somewhat dictates that. So we have, last year in the semifinal game against Bryant, our left back during part of the game had graduated in 2023. The player that he was playing against, their right wing, graduated in 2013. That's different. That's the 25, 26-year-old playing against an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So some of that is dictated by who we play against. To keep up with them, we must bring in older players. Yeah. This year's incoming class has 4 freshmen out of the 11 incoming players. So clearly we have more. We have 7 transfer students, 2 grad students, 5 undergrad transfers. And in that freshman class, we have arguably one of the best goalkeepers out of Pennsylvania. He's an All-American high school player out of Pennsylvania. And we have a a state player of the year out of Virginia coming. So this class is a pretty good class. 2 Virginia players, a New York, Long Island, one of the better players on Long Island. So the underclassmen, the 4 freshmen, really good coming in as freshmen, might take a little bit of time to play just because of the age and the maturity of players. And I don't just mean in their character. I mean on the field, their maturity on the field, their ability to understand what competitive spirit has to be at to play at the Division I level, how fast the game is, how fit the game is. I mean, it's remarkable how much ground the players are covering now. All the players are in GPS units where you get to see their top speeds, and some of the kids are hitting 20 miles per hour, and they're doing it again the very next day, which is crazy to think. And then, we are looking internationally. We have a good mix of international players.
Yeah.
Most of that is done by position, what kind of needs the team needs. But I would like to see us get back to where 4-year players are coming. I just don't know how much that will be.
Yeah, I mean, and I can appreciate obviously your desire to do that because it's commendable. You mentioned your staff, and you said going overseas, going over to Kenya. Your concern was I'm getting home this weekend, and then we're going right into practice. But you said I have a good staff, and when we talk about the staff and we look at Tommy Moon and Evan Maslin and Harrison Williams, what can you say about Tommy, Evan, and Harrison, and just what they do together to challenge you? And to also give you that peace of mind that you can go overseas knowing that you have a good staff.
So Tommy has been with me for a while. And when I mean a while, Tommy has been around me since he was 10. He grew up here locally. He played locally for us in the club that we work in. He was a tremendous youth player. And then he decided to attend. He was one of those youth players that I wanted to try to keep at home.
Yeah.
What we did with Tommy is we sent him away during the summer. So Tommy went out to Des Moines to play in the PDL at the time. He went to Washington to play with DC United's U23s. He went down to Jersey Express. So during the summers when Tommy was in college, he was getting out of town. And then obviously he would be back for college. So he played 5 years. He had a serious injury his senior year and returned to play the next year. I think if he didn't have that injury, he probably would have had a pro career at some place. He was that good of a player. And now he's been on staff since 2015. So he obviously, him and I see the game very similar. We discuss the game. We talk about it all the time. Just before I got on here with you, I was with him. We were picking up some food for the team for tomorrow. And we're still talking about the game. And we watched one of the Olympic Games today, and we were kind of chatting about that. And then Harrison, I've known Harrison for, probably 25 years. He's a retired school teacher down in the city. I had him on his coaching badges. We hit it off great. We stayed in touch. And then he moved up here just over the border into Pennsylvania. And he was working on our youth club, and I decided to add him to our college staff. He's been wonderful when it comes to relationships and helping us solve problems on and off the field. And then Evan Maslin just joined the staff this past month. He played youth soccer for us here. He grew up in the Whitney Point area. He's into politics a little bit. He currently has a job in politics that he's kind of stepping a little bit back from. He'll continue to work in that a little bit, but he trains the goalkeepers. I've gotten a chance to work with him over the years in a coaching capacity as well. Yeah. And when we had an opportunity for him to step on, it just wonderful for him to join our staff.
And as we take this staff forward in this 2024 season, you have something that we also don't typically see. Now, the America East, we know, is a Northeast laden type of conference, but non-conference and in conference, you're not leaving the Northeast your entire schedule, which is not typically heard of, right? You're going to be starting off in Emmitsburg, Maryland against Mount St. Mary's, Maryland, out of conference, and then you'll be home for 2 in a row. Your first home match is going to be against Lemoyne, which is an hour away, and that'll be on August 25th on a Sunday at 1 p.m. Then on August 28th on a Wednesday at 6:07 p.m., William and Mary. then Hempstead on the road for Hofstra, and then you have Colgate at home. Then you go to Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey on the road. Then you're back home for two in a row, Central Connecticut State, and then getting into AEC play. Your first America East match this season is going to be September 28th on a Saturday at home at 6:07 p.m. Eastern time. For people wondering why is it 6:07 and not 6:07 is the area code, and UMVC there to go up against Binghamton. So, looking at this, your second match of the season's at home, two in a row, and then we look at your first AEC game in conference is at home, and you're not leaving the Northeast for the entire season. To me, from my outside looking in, that looks good to me. But how do you think the schedule kind of lines up from your point of view?
I think we have a terrific schedule. When Tommy and I put the schedule together and we were talking about teams to add, our biggest challenge is getting off on the right foot. We want to make sure that we get, our two exhibition games. We play a week from yesterday, so we play next Monday against the junior college national champions, Monroe. We play them usually every year. One for recruiting, we see what they have. Is there anybody that we like that we want to try to bring to Binghamton?
Yeah.
And it's an excellent game. They're an excellent team when it comes to possession and keeping the ball, and it'll help us in our pressing and how we want to try to defend in a mid block and a low block. And then we play Navy at home as well in another exhibition game. The challenge for us will be that we play Bryant, UNH, and Vermont all on the road.
Yeah.
And from last year's performance, those are the top three teams. So those will be very difficult road games for us. But I like our team on the road. I think that we perform pretty well usually on the road. So I am looking forward to the schedule. I think that we've got the right spacing between games. We should be able to fully recover. We have a couple of open weeks that usually we don't get, and this year I think we have 3 open weeks when usually it's either 1 or 2. So that's going to be a good thing too for us.
Yeah.
It's hard to get guys fresh and conditioned when you play every 4 days.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, I mean, with them all having GPS units and topping off 20 miles an hour at times, and like you said, doing it again the next day, I mean, we forget that when people watch athletes, you forget that this is still a human body. It's not a car, right. It's not a plane, it's not a boat. This is a human being, and that engine needs time to kind of cool down and get set for the next time it's going to take a ride, so to speak. We're going to get into rapid fire in a second here, where you and I get to ask each other questions. It can be sports related or it can be about anything, get to know each other, have some fun. But before we go there, the final point that I want to make, and there's a million places I can go because I could have just stayed on the Kenya trip and all of that for this entire episode, and we'll have to spend more time in some of this and the World Cup and the things you've gotten to do. But behind you, you have scarves. And, when it comes to the world of soccer, the soccer scarf world, I have some myself, and I'm very proud to have the ones that I have. I saw some Red Bull in there. That was the first MLS match I ever went to, and the second one that I ever went to. So the first time I went and saw the MLS live, it was when they were still in Giant Stadium, and I got to go see the Red Bull. So I'd love to kind of get the story behind the scarves that are behind you here in your office.
So some of them, most of them are games I've attended. The German scarf back there, that was the NSCAA International Diploma that we did. Some of them, we have players that have played there. So there's a Baltimore Blast one up there. We have a Binghamton scarves. You can kind of see next to Baxter, there's a Binghamton scarf.
Yeah.
That scarf used to be our season ticket. So we would, sell season tickets, but the ticket was actually your scarf. So you would just wear your scarf into the game and get into the games. Since Gene has come in, our new athletic director, he's made a few changes. One of them is for most of our Olympic sports, entry is free. I think that I got caught up in my first few games that I went to with getting a scarf, and then it just kind of stayed. I try to get a scarf at all the games that I go to.
So here's my question to you. What do I have to do to get a Binghamton scarf for my studio?
Oh, easy. I can send you one. You just need to get me your address.
Fair enough. Those Binghamton scarves are nice. But
Yeah, they're nice.
I
They're
do
nice.
have Red Bull and I have Orlando City SC because I covered them in their first season going into the MLS. But my team, my favorite team, is I like picking teams that are coming into their beginning, their inaugural season, so there's no bandwagon. So my official favorite team, and I just posted a video recently on my social media for the Crown. My team is Charlotte FC.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so I took them like a year before they played. I was like, I
Uh-huh.
think this is going to be my team, and then I watched their first game on YouTube TV, which was nice. So let's get into rapid fire. It could be about anything. Coaches never get to ask questions, but on this show you do. So you can ask me anything in the world, Paul, and I have to answer it, and we'll go back and forth.
Okay. How did you get involved in this type of podcast?
You know, short answer, I'm a storyteller since I was like 5 years old. My dad used to open up his word processor and put it on the table, this typewriter with this little green and black screen, this high tech typewriter. And I would get up there and I'd type on it at 5 years old and I'd create stories. And I have that word processor in my office, which is connected to my studio that I'm in, to remind me of how I got started.
Cool.
And I yeah, I love telling stories. It's on my ring. There's a feather pen, and it's a reminder to me that be it my music, be it my comedy, be it broadcasting, be it screenwriting or anything that I do, everything starts with a pen and a piece of paper. And I love telling stories. I love spreading positivity. I love bringing people together. I love making people laugh. So I got into this because all of the things that I am, I was going to do anyway. And I thought, why not make my career me? So then
Yeah, cool.
I don't feel like I'm working and everything that I do has my whole heart because it's me.
Right. Well, that's one of those P's. That's the purpose. Yeah.
So
And
my
you get to do it at the right place too. It looks like your studio is part of your home.
yeah.
That's great.
And the thing is, I mean, having like you said the P's, the purpose, the people, I get to meet great people. And I get to tell their stories. I mean, I look at the story that you told me here today, and we've had over 5,000 guests on the show, but I've never had someone with the scarves and that element. I've never had somebody with a Kenya story. I've never had someone with this type of background that you had. So to me, you know, I'm constantly being challenged and I'm constantly finding just the uniqueness of people and realizing that everybody has a story to tell, whether or not they think so. I feel like it's my job on this earth to make sure that I can help as many people as possible know that they matter, that they're heard, and that somebody appreciates them.
We today was a long day of meetings. I mean, we've been at it, and I'm still kind of on Kenya time. So I woke up this morning around 4
Yeah.
because they're 7 hours ahead of us. So I was wide awake. I decided to leave for work. My wife was like, "Why are you going in so early?" It was about 6:15 when I left. I ended up stopping at Starbucks. I hadn't had a good Starbucks, and I drink tea. We did have tea in Kenya. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So I got a tea, and I ended up just staying at Starbucks until about 8:30 when I came in. And one of the things that I decided to do is we try to have some icebreakers, the first day, kind of meet and greet guys. We sometimes do snowball fights where you write some stuff on a sheet of paper, you throw them around, and you try to figure out who wrote what on the paper. But today we I put a slide deck together that kind of had different words on it. So one of the words might be superhero, and then you had to get in groups, figure out who your favorite superhero is, and then kind of what groups liked Batman and Spider-Man and so on. But we normally kind of have either speed dating or where somebody stands up, they tell, two truths and a lie, and you try to figure that out. Or But I've decided that this year we're going to do things a little differently. So we're actually going to tell our own story. So
Oh,
tomorrow I'll give a demonstration. I'm going to go first. It's 2 minutes on the clock. You have to continue to talk for 2 minutes, and you get to tell your life story as much as you want to share, as much detail as you want to get into. But I really think that trying to get to know each other in that, the beginning stages coming together.
yeah.
Um, we talked about the four stages of a team today, and that kind of just coming together stage and what that's going to look like for us. Hopefully, we can blow right through the storming stage and come back together. And I think that this storytelling time is going to be pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to hearing what some of our guys have done in their young lives.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think all those icebreakers are definitely worth utilizing at any level with any team or jobs and whatnot. I think that's huge, and I think that the 2 minute tell me your story, that's really cool because you're gonna kind of see where people's heads go, what they focus on, what matters to them, and if they only had two
Right,
minutes to talk, like what do they want you to know? I think
right,
it's pretty cool.
yeah.
So my
And we're going to
question,
try to
oh
get
sorry,
through everybody in 2 weeks,
oh
so it'll
cool,
be pretty cool.
yeah, and you got, I'm excited. I kind of want to be there for it. I kind of want to just be there and sit and just listen and be like, now I know all the guys. I know what
Yeah.
kind of matters to them. So my question back to you, Paul, is going off of that. I'm going to put you on the clock for 2 minutes, and I want you to tell me Paul Marco and go now.
Well, I was born in Del Rio, Texas. My family moved around a little bit. My dad was in the Air Force, and I'm the oldest. So we moved from Texas to Hawaii. I don't really remember it. I see the pictures and wish I remembered it, but I don't really remember it. And then we settled back where my family is. My mom and dad were both from the capital region. I grew up in Rotterdam, where my family owned most of the town. I mean, my aunts and uncles and everybody had anything from restaurants to TV repair to the crane company to construction, a little bit into politics. I have a brother and a sister, both are younger. My brother Sean got involved in soccer. That's how I got involved in it. He uh, is 3 years younger than me, and he started playing when he was much younger than I did. I didn't start playing the game until I was in 10th grade. I fell in love with the game and then just didn't stop playing. While growing up, I started normally, like most American kids. I started in baseball and did a little bit of that. I picked up golf in high school. But I did play a sport that not many play. I was a roller speed skater.
Oh,
I skated on a national level. I traveled around the country like kids do now for youth sports. Um, I had some wonderful coaches, some wonderful opportunity. I mean, one of the big words now is plyometrics and jump training. I was doing plyometrics when I was in high school training for roller speed skating. I thoroughly enjoyed my childhood. My parents had a summer cabin above Lake George that was in the family.
yeah.
My great grandfather had built it, and it's still there. My family still goes up there. But I was dropped off on Saturday all through elementary, middle, and high school. My brothers and sisters and I would be dropped off, and we would be picked up on Labor Day. So I had kind of two friends. I had my friends where I grew up most of the year, and then I had friends that I had for all summer that kind of lived up in that area where we were. Um, I come from a family of soccer players. My dad and my uncle both played. My uncle was my first coach. He probably changed my life because I really fell in love with the game when I played for him. And then I had a kind of a unique recruiting story. I was supposed to follow my high school sweetheart to a school, and she moved to the state of Washington. I've not seen or heard from her again. And then I just decided I wasn't going to go to school. And I went on a recruiting trip, on a trip with my cousin to go to a junior college that he was going to attend, about 40 minutes from home.
Yeah.
I took a just out for lunch, and I was playing some video games, and the coach there, Tom Rogan, came up and asked if I was going to school there. I said no, and he gave me a tour, and I ended up going there. Started the next day. Um, he changed my life. I mean, I wanted to be that guy. You know, you've had some mentors in your life where you just want to be that guy. I really like that guy. Um, so I start in engineering. I switched to physical education. I thought I'd be a college professor. Um, I go to the University of Tampa on a recruiting trip, and while I'm there, I go for a run just in the neighborhood. A bunch of guys are playing pickup soccer. This guy comes up after we're done playing. His name is Rocky Harmon. He's the second guy that changed my life. He was the assistant coach at the time at West Virginia, but he was a Tampa alum. So I guess I played pretty well because if I didn't, I think they would have said, "Hey, the guy with the tail, let's not have him on the team next year or next week." But I do pretty well in that game. I end up going to West Virginia the next weekend and end up obviously attending West Virginia. I played there for a few years. I had a wonderful career. I had a wonderful mentor in John McGrath, the head coach, who got me my first job. He got me into this. I can't thank him enough. Every time I see him, I thank him for my life because without him, I probably wouldn't be in soccer. And then I'm married. I have two daughters. One dances. She just made the Washington Wizards dance team.
Wow.
And then I have going to be a sophomore at the University of New Haven who plays soccer, who actually passed her first coaching course in Kenya. So, and my wife Cheryl is a nurse. Yeah, we live in Endicott. We have two cats. My wife has taught herself how to speak Spanish. She, I think, said today that she's over 550 consecutive days on Duolingo. And the cats that we have, they're kittens. They only speak Spanish.
Oh,
They only know Spanish. She screams at them in Spanish. So when I tell them it's time for me to feed them, they don't know what I'm saying. I have to talk to them in Spanish. But no, but life is good.
that's awesome. That was an awesome story.
How'd I do?
You
I do
did
all
good.
right?
You did good. That was good. That was
You
good.
put me on a spot, to be fair.
What'd you say?
You put me on the spot. I haven't rehearsed yet for my time tomorrow night.
Hey, I mean, it's this whole conversation has been unique. Your life story did not disappoint in the uniqueness. Final question that you have for me, Coach. What do you got for me?
Um, what is your favorite sport to cover
Oh, that's tough.
and why?
So I've covered so many. I joke with people we haven't done water polo yet or curling, but
I think curling would be all right to cover.
yeah,
I like watching it.
curling is fun. Curling is interesting, but I mean, there's one. So I'm gonna say, I mean, I played most of my life, and I shut my brain off when I play, and I absolutely love it. And there's a music to it, there's a rhythm to it, and is basketball. But I'm gonna tell you that there's only one sport that I've ever been a head coach of, and a lot of people don't know this. But when I was living in Pennsylvania and had just graduated from Marywood University, I started coaching a team in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, at their YMCA, a travel team that had no jerseys, didn't have a team name, didn't have a logo. I designed the logo, I gave us a name, and I gave each of the kids a jersey or a t-shirt that we could do.
Wow.
And that team that I still miss to this day, I get the itch. My godson plays. He's 9 years old. He scored like 8 goals in one game. The kid is left foot, right foot, doesn't matter. The only sport that I've ever been a head coach of is U12 soccer. And I would entertain coaching again because I didn't grow up with it, but I have absolutely fallen in love with it. And I thought the only sport I would ever cover is coach is basketball. But standing on the sideline of a soccer game, I can see myself doing that, even if it was
Cool.
coaching kids, because it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I work in a club here where we have, the youngest is U6, U8,
Yeah.
way up to, all the way up to U23. It's cool. It's a good break from the college guys.
Yeah, and I love it. And I shouldn't even say even coach the kids. I mean, I chose the kids as young as I could get, 8 to 11, because my
Right.
intent was to be with them all the way through. And then I ended up coming back to my hometown of Syracuse, and I still miss the kids. And I still have my Carbondale Pride lion on the front, Coach Dan on the
Cool.
back with the claw. So yeah,
Nice.
I definitely get the itch. And one of my best friends are my brothers, and Johnny Noah is his son. Johnny's been coaching, and I'm like to the point of like pulling him aside and going, "Hey man, like I kind of feel like I want to like help out a little bit." You know what
Right.
I?
Nice.
So,
Hey, listen, assistant coaches roles are pretty cool,
well, and I will say this, Paul, is
especially with youth soccer.
if I need any pointers, I know to come to you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, my final question for you, if you could have dinner, living or deceased, with any three soccer players in history, who would you eat with and why?
Can I answer it kind of in two ways?
Yeah.
Living and non-living.
Yeah.
Living, I would probably take a coach. So I would add Sir Alex Ferguson. And then I would want to have, I would then would want to sit between the two aliens. I'd want to sit between Ronaldo and Messi and bounce questions off the two of them and let Alex Ferguson kind of gang up on Messi with Ronaldo with me.
Okay.
Those would be the three living.
Okay.
And then I would love to be with Pele. Probably Maradona and Pele would be the two. And then I would probably pick a coach again. I probably would want to be with, obviously everybody would probably say Cruyff might be the most popular one, but I probably would want to be with Reynes Michaels, who was probably the total football, who had the Holland team, and really probably the first coach to kind of give us total football. But those would be my ones. And I now you have me thinking. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm not hungry right now, but I could definitely go to dinner with those guys.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, when you talk about that and how things come to life, and you mentioned total football and like learning about that recently, for me and getting to see that and what that meant, like that starts to jog that up. I mean, honestly, Paul, this conversation has been barely scratching the surface of what I want to talk about. So I'm going to tell you a couple things. One, obviously, I'd love to have you back. Two, I'd love to talk with some of your student athletes. Three, you're going to see me down in Binghamton because I have to see this team in action. And I honestly, and I don't say anything I don't mean, this has been one of the most fun things because as much as we talked about and as much as I'm like, I want to get this in and I want to get that in, I honestly feel like I barely scratched the surface. So I just asked you who you want to have dinner with. I want to have dinner with you so I can sit here and not have a time clock on it and go, all right, tell me some stories. Like
Well, let me know when
honestly
you're coming to
feel
Binghamton.
I'm a
I'd love
sponge
to
to it.
love to
So
grab lunch or something with you. Be
yeah,
great.
let's definitely plan that out. But I mean, Paul, I think I could speak to the people watching and listening. This has been fun. It's been really cool. It's been completely unique. And I'm so happy that we got to cross paths because picking your brain and being around you, you could tell how passionate you are. And passionate people, it just it pulls you. And I mean, I'm really super excited for this season, and it's your
Me
fault.
too.
So thank
Me
you for
too.
that.
Thanks. Well, I look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely, you too.